Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. This is H.R. 489, or House Resolution 489, censoring and condemning the new California senator. This is a year ago. If you scroll down, however, it foreshadows further investigation, indictments, and a whole lot of... It foreshadows exactly what's going to take place with Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, John Radcliffe. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is H.R. 489. The resolution condemns and censors California's new senator for conduct that misleads the American people and directs the Committee on Ethics to investigate that conduct. They were calling for investigation of California's new senator last year. And, of course, this was across party lines, but you even had never-Trumpers vote for this. Now you have Kash Patel as the Federal Bureau of Investigation chief, Pam Bondi as the Attorney General, John Radcliffe at Central Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence. And so you have a completely new ballgame. This will be one of the things that serves as a basis for a special counsel and an eventual indictment, almost certainly, of a whole number of Democrats. Very likely, almost certainly, including, let's just say very likely, including the new California congressman. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, to my super chat. Thank you so very much for your support. Paul Bartlett, I cannot thank you enough. I can't thank you enough, Paul. You're so generous in Australia. Thank you, Paul. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. This is H.R. 489, censoring and condemning, we'll just say, the new California senator. This was when he was representative. Bianna Polina Luna, who sponsored it, but it passed a very narrow House, or a Republican-led House that was just a 1 or 2 representative lead. So that should tell you something. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Going to give you Kash Patel first, and then John Radcliffe, and Pam Bondi. But this is exactly why the next 5, 6, 7 months, you're going to see either a special counsel or indictments off the bat. Very likely, the odds are there's going to be a special counsel at first, demanding documents, demanding testimony from a number of people who have conflicting interests on the Democratic Party side. A number of people who have conflicting interests or conflicting testimony that went after and framed Trump. They're all going to turn on each other. You know how that goes. But the bottom line is that Schiff and others stated things that were not true to the American public for years and years. Trump was never a Kremlin operative. And all the underlying evidence wasn't evidence. There wasn't a shred of actual evidence. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Thanks, everybody. To my super chat, thank you. Let's get started.
John Durham over 1,000 other documents that have not yet been declassified that I know include intelligence that goes specifically to this criminal activity that would be the basis for further indictments. And, again, what happened with the Steele dossier, a grand jury is saying was criminal in nature, and I expect that all of the folks that are involved with creating it and peddling it falsely would be in jeopardy.
There was a time.
And that was former Director of National Intelligence John Radcliffe with me last week on this program on what he declassified, which, of course, exposed that this dossier and whole Russia collusion lie was a fabrication from Hillary Clinton. I am back with Kash Patel right now. And Kash, we mentioned Fiona Hill making all of these introductions to Christopher Steele as well as Charles Dolan. Meanwhile, she says she has no idea what they were doing. Here is a quote from her from
Leon, thank you so very much. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Paul, thank you again. Leon, thank you.
A closed-door testimony from October of 2019 saying, I have no knowledge whatsoever of how he developed that dossier. None. I just want to state that. What are your thoughts on this? And give us your sense of the 3 indictments we've seen so far and where this is going.
Yeah, real quick on Fiona Hill. I think John Durham is on the case here because Fiona Hill has a credibility problem. I believe she lied to Congress there under oath. She connected the main Clinton political operative, who Devin and I had never heard of because DOJ and FBI withheld those documents from us intentionally, I believe so. And now John Durham has exposed that. She connects the Steele operation to the Democratic Party, and she has the gall to go on national TV or into closed-door testimony and say, I don't know what's going on with Steele. But John Durham's on that case, and I think we're going to get there. As to the 3 indictments that John Durham has issued, I believe he's built a sort of triangle of indictments, as I call them. At the top of the pyramid, you have Sussman, who represents an indictment of the Hillary Clinton campaign, the DNC, the law firm, and Fusion GPS, funneling tens of millions of dollars.
By the way, the reason these people either weren't indicted or got out of indictments or were not prosecuted is because John Durham did not have access to classified information that would have prosecuted almost certainly these individuals. There's a lot of information that will be declassified on a whole bunch of topics, okay? Music industry people, Democratic donors, okay, who are no longer with us, thank goodness. So a whole lot of I'm speaking about one in particular that was a criminal and did a whole lot of evil things. And anyway, so they withheld information. They also did not have a Justice Department that actually wanted to indict anyone or wanted to convict anyone. You had also government officials going to bat. Literally, you had the prosecution, the witnesses for the prosecution defending the defendants because they were all in on it. But now you're going to have testimony now you're going to have a special counsel or numerous special counsels or indictments immediately from classified, from data that was declassified and released, talking about intent or exposing or showing intent and motive from a whole bunch of people to set up and frame Trump, utilizing information that was literally purchased by Trump's direct political rivals. So most morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats don't know this. They don't care. This is all public record information. The information that isn't public record, you have a whole new intel community that will uncover what the previous intel community tried to hide from the American public, which will make it a lot easier to prosecute and convict people than it was for John Durham.
To perpetuate the biggest fraud in American history into the FBI. The bottom 2 pillars of the Durham triangle, I believe, are the John Durham's indictment of the FBI attorney, which is literally an indictment of the FBI and now a criminal conviction for lying to a federal court to perpetuate a fraud and get a FISA warrant falsely. The last leg of the Durham triangle comes in the form of his recent indictment of Danchenko. Who's Danchenko and why does it matter? Danchenko is Steele's main source, introduced to Steele by Fiona Hill, who Steele relied on to write his dossier, in which he said Steele received credible information from Danchenko. We now know Danchenko's a liar. We also know, because of the Durham investigation, Danchenko provided no credible information to Christopher Steele. So his credibility has been destroyed, and these merchants of menace are finally coming to light thanks to John Durham's great work. And he's got a long way to go. And I'm glad he's getting the the information that Rod Rosenstein and Chris Wray intentionally withheld from Chairman Nunes in our investigation during Russiagate probe.
So on the Kevin Kleinsmith indictment, this is the FBI attorney. Does it end there, or are we going to see a road to others in the FBI, perhaps getting arrested for directing Kevin Kleinsmith? This is a young guy who obviously changed paperwork to say that Carter Page was not an asset of the CIA when in fact he was.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, I think all roads lead to Andy McCabe, the former deputy director of the FBI, who was caught lying 3 times by the inspector general during his tenure there. Kevin Kleinsmith, the mid-level FBI attorney, cannot pull off the greatest political scandal in history alone. He needs direction from his supervisors. He's a convicted felon. He doctored a piece of paper for the FISA court. Now, I, as a former national security prosecutor who did FISAs, know how horrendous and how egregious that type of conduct is. But more importantly, I know that it cannot be done alone. It is virtually impossible to get that information to a federal judge for a secret surveillance warrant without the deputy director of the FBI knowing it. And I think all roads lead to Andy McCabe. His credibility is in question, not to mention that of Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Andy McCabe, who orchestrated the insurance policy to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. That's their own text messages.
Real quick.
So you have text messages, you have emails, you have documents, you have phones that used to have text messages or emails or information that were erased. You have all of this stuff that we haven't even seen yet. Okay? You have the messages that we've seen that are already incriminating, but people just, there was zero will. The Department of Justice and all of these intel agencies had no desire at all to help Trump. They just wanted to frame and set up Trump. And that's the thing. These people, like the people who around this country, actually, Trump is a lot more popular than people think. He's a lot more admired and beloved than people think. But the rabid, almost always apoplectic, wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats who disown friends and family because Trump is an authoritarian and he signed prison reform legislation like most authoritarians, and he's literally the anti-war president, while they choose the most militant option and they're against authoritarians. These people lack knowledge of history. The wonderful, morally superior among us. But anyway, the system, the government that Trump was running when he was president, and even after, especially after president, was leveled against him. And this is like the Keystone Cops suddenly no longer being employed by a local government and having to, justify everything they did. Now you're going to have what Democrats and government and media wanted to do is bankrupt people. They tried to bankrupt a whole lot of people into endless legal fees. Now those same people who tried to bankrupt others are going to have to also now, there are articles already, there are a whole bunch of people getting criminal defense lawyers in D.C. But not just that. They're going to, if they lied under oath or if they committed a crime. So if California senator lied to the American people deliberately, for example, and we know that from, and if we find that out from declassified information, that's a crime. So they went after a sitting president, they went after a former president, but now that president has regained political power. He's now a 2-term president. The entire intel community that Adam Schiff and others utilized to make their allegations against Trump now shares the same vision of same domestic and foreign policy vision as the president. Trump finally has his own administration. Now, everything that the prior administration covered up, all of the information, exculpatory information they covered up against people they wanted to imprison for no good reason, this McCarthy era Red Scare nonsense they created, this hysteria among the country. Okay, there's people who don't understand what Kash Patel is talking about. If you stumble upon this channel and you're like, indictment? What? Why would any Democratic senator, why would Trump want to go after his political rivals? Well, they went after him in an illegal manner, almost certainly. So you have all of these former government officials, bureau officials, Central Intelligence, all of these DOJ, they thought they got away. They very, very likely thought, okay, We went after Trump. They couldn't prove anything with the Durham probe. That's it. It's done. Well, Trump won again after being indicted 10 billion times and 3 attempts on his life, where one man lost his life. A firefighter lost his life protecting his family. And of course, there's no investigative journalism on that. But I don't know why. There should be, from the morally superior among us. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic. Why doesn't the Atlantic do a story, investigate exactly why a man protecting his family lost his life that day during Trump's first attempt on his life, during the first attempt on Trump's life? Why isn't that it? Like all the Pulitzer Prize winning journalists, don't they want to know, like, what? How did this happen? How do these security lapses happen? This is not just a Republican Democrat thing. This is an American thing. But anyway, this is Kash Patel talking. I mean, these are the things that I've been talking about. I've written about them from day one, ladies and gentlemen, the past 7 years.
Real quick before you go, you took the deposition of Jake Sullivan. As I keep saying on this program and have for some time, those who abuse power are now in power. Jake Sullivan was the communications person for Hillary Clinton, a manager for her. Now he is working for Joe Biden at the NSA. He said he put out a tweet and a post back in October of 2016. Listen to this. This could be the most direct link yet between Donald Trump and Moscow. Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert.
So that was a complete lie. So the same Democrats who are like, oh my God, Republicans believe lies. This is a complete and utter lie. There was not a shred of truth. In fact, when they investigated, they found out that it had nothing to do with any, it was like, it had absolutely zero to do with any communication between Trump and anyone else. And they fabricated everything. And they even, for a second, got a hold of the computer systems at the White House. And so this was a complete fabrication, along with the Steele dossier and everything else that you heard about Trump. Even when they say, well, Trump said this, a lot of time, almost always, it's like a lie by omission or just a blatant lie. He didn't really say what he's accused of saying. And then when Democrats say even worse, they just, oh, it's no big deal. Trump is worse. And this is why they lost and it was a landslide. When you lose the popular vote to President Trump, and Trump did not get even 10% favorable media coverage. He was indicted 1 million times. None of it stuck. There was one conviction, which was everyone on the planet is like, this is ridiculous. Because it was an overt attempt at trying to twist and contort legal theory. Okay, he was basically innocent of everything he's ever been accused of, which is why he's not in prison now. He had the Republican Party after him, Trump. He had the Never-Trumpers. He had the Democratic Party. He had all of media, and he had all of the U.S. government. I mean, Trump is like Charles Bronson in one of those movies. He's just the entire world's going after him, and he still prevails. But see, again, the wonderful morally superior is so big on ethics, they don't care. And they're going to look at this like, Trump's an authoritarian. He's going after the people who tried to wrongfully imprison him.
Server linking the Trump organization to the Russian-based bank. Here is his post that Hillary Clinton then tweeted out. Jake Sullivan was peddling and spreading the dossier.
He was, and he has the gall to come into Congress. And as you mentioned, I took so many of those depositions and say he had no idea, like Fiona Hill, how the dossier was created or who the $10 million Jake Sullivan and the DNC were paying was being utilized to collect foreign intelligence fraudulent information. So I think John Durham's on his case. And Maria, wouldn't it be the irony of all ironies for the current national security prosecutor to get charged with an actual felony based on real information and fact and not have this Department of Justice withhold exculpatory evidence like they did to the former national security advisor under Donald Trump? I think that's the accountability that the American public so desperately need. And I think that's where this road is going and where John Durham's taking us. So stay tuned. I think we're only 60 to 70% of the way there.
All right. We'll keep watching that and talk with you along the way. Kash, thanks very much for joining us from beautiful, snowy Pennsylvania.
So really quickly, Kash Patel can't do this without Pam Bondi and John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, and Pam Bondi can't do this without Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe and Kash Patel. So you went from, this is a team effort because it was a team effort to get Trump. It'll be a team effort to unravel all the ways they lied and circumvented or bent or broke the law. So you have government officials we know that had intent to stop Trump. They literally wrote that there was intent to stop Trump, and the Inspector General report said, well, there were government officials who did try to stop Trump, but we didn't see a systemic issue among the organization. It's like, you're not going to get, what do you expect? You wouldn't need the entire organization to pledge that they're going to take down a sitting president. You're never going to find that. But the IG report did find numerous instances, not just of bias, of animus towards Trump. That's all you need to convict people. But again, all of this fell through the cracks, and nobody really wanted to do anything to hold anyone accountable. Now you have people who will be held accountable. And you have a Senate, the political future of every senator is tied directly to Trump and to Trump's landslide victory. And it was a landslide when you look at the fact that he didn't use media is at an all-time low in terms of trust. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about what the mainstream, which is really the lifeblood of the Democratic Party, the mainstream media, nobody cares anymore. They have a 20 to 30% not just approval rating. Only 20 to 30% of Americans, according to Gallup, actually trust media, because media in general lies by omission. One of the greatest lies in modern American political history is the lie by omission about Trump. It's the only way to generate enthusiasm for the Democratic Party, is a lie by omission. Trump said this. Not really. No, actually, he didn't say that. He actually condemned those people. No, he said this. And they then, nothing gets a morally superior liberal Democrat more, enthusiastic than making him think that he's going up against the authoritarians of years past. And then when they do a little research, which they don't usually, they realize that, oh, he actually didn't say that or didn't do that.
Heard from Congressman Jim Jordan. My next guest is one of his colleagues on the House Judiciary Committee. He also plans to question some key players in their investigation into the FBI's handling of the Russia probe, as well as the Steele dossier this week. Glenn Simpson, the co-founder of the opposition research firm Fusion GPS that helped assemble the dossier, was expected to face the panel on Tuesday. He is rejecting a subpoena to testify. He says he's going to take the fifth, while former FBI General Counsel James Baker plans to testify on Thursday of this week. Nellie Orr worked as a contractor for the firm. She is the wife of the number 4 executive at the Department of Justice, Bruce Orr. She's set to testify on Friday. Let me bring in Texas Republican Congressman John Ratcliffe. He sits on the House Homeland Security Committee as well as the Judiciary. He is a former federal prosecutor. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Morning, Maria.
What's most important about this upcoming week?
Well, as you know, we did subpoena Glenn Simpson, the Fusion GPS co-founder, the person who commissioned the infamous Steele dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. He has.
And by the way, they just gave Hunter Biden a pardon. So Biden just gave Hunter a pardon, but it's not a pardon for what he would be accused of in a future special counsel. The whole thing with Hunter and Joe is potential and alleged bribery and graft, which is what 50 Intel officials tried to lie about. So that I don't think that pardon really does any good, because it's not for specific crimes that are part of a laptop. But all of the people who did not get indicted or prosecuted when we have Trump's new administration, a lot of information that was hidden will no longer be hidden because of declassification.
has indicated through his lawyers that he plans to take the Fifth or assert his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. The reason for that, Maria, is that Glenn Simpson had previously testified under oath to the House Intelligence Committee that he never met with Bruce Ohr or discussed with Bruce Ohr the Steele dossier prior to the October FISA application in 2016 or the 2016 presidential election. That is in direct contradiction to what Bruce Ohr told me under oath last month. So I'm not surprised that Glenn Simpson is taking the Fifth. He probably should. He's in real legal jeopardy. Very clearly, someone is not telling the truth. Nellie Ohr, Bruce Ohr's wife, certainly can shed some light with respect to that circumstance, but we also need to find out from Nellie Ohr, who was paid $40,000 by Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS for her work, including the work.
Leon, thank you, sir. Leon, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Love the message. Bogdan, thank you so very, very much as always. Thank you as always for watching. Bogdan, thank you so very, very much. Leon, thank you. And Paul, as always, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so very much.
Work on the Steele dossier. Why that fact? The fact that the wife of the number 4 person at the Department of Justice, who along with her husband had operational roles with respect to the Steele dossier, that fact wasn't disclosed by the Department of Justice when they presented that evidence to the FISA court.
So where is the crime then? Is it her husband or is it her? She did all of this research, which was never verified, on Donald Trump, and then put it in this dossier and then put it on a little thumb drive and gave it to her husband at the DOJ, who wasn't even working on anything about Trump at the time.
Well, ultimately, the questions with respect to the FISA court and the representations that were made, remember what we're talking about is the extraordinary measure of getting a warrant to spy on an American citizen. And if that was done under false pretenses with false information or false verifications, then that's violating someone's civil liberties under color of law, 42 U.S.C. 1983 violation. So that's why we need to talk to Nellie Ohr and others to try and determine what the FBI knew, when they knew it, what the Department of Justice knew, when they knew it, and why those representations weren't fully disclosed to the FISA court.
It sounds like there was a group at the top of the FBI and the DOJ who, frankly, didn't like Donald Trump, didn't want him to be president. So
it's very difficult to prove intent or motive, okay? And if you look at this right here, the resolution condemning California senator, that was just months ago, okay? A year ago. And the reason this is important is because there's already been an attempt to investigate, well, a resolution. There was a resolution to investigate how California's congressman lied to the people. Or why did he say the things that he said? That's the question. If there's motive that they can prove, that's also a crime. But also, was there any collusion between media and the Democratic Party? That also could be a crime. If you're deliberately planting stories, knowing that they're false, so that judges can then utilize those stories to justify illegal surveillance, that's a big problem. There's a whole bunch of statutes. You can't just simply say, well, we didn't know. We didn't know. We had no clue. We just thought that Trump was a Kremlin operative because we got a dossier purchased by Clinton. Oopsie. Sorry. You can't do that. It's against the law. It's against the law. Stephanie. Chanta. Thank you. Jose. Thank you, everybody. Greatly appreciated. To my super chat, thank you. So there's already a resolution that calls to investigate California senator, and the indictment will take place almost certainly of a number of Democratic Party officials, congressmen, senators, anyone involved, former operatives, lawyers, everybody that thought that they got away with setting up and framing Trump did not. If you've heard all of this that Kash Patel and John Ratcliffe and Pam Bondi have talked about from me, and I know 1/10 of what they know, not even 1/100th. Imagine what they'll be able to uncover if you have an entire administration for 8 years hiding information through the classification process. Even President Obama stated when he was trying to defend Clinton, he said, well, you know, a lot of these things aren't really classified. There's classified, then there's classified. Well, they hide incriminating information. And they didn't give John Durham all the information he needed to actually prosecute people. The DOJ routinely withheld information. Even William Barr's DOJ withheld information from Durham. So, but this is not the case anymore.
This morning, Kash Patel.
I'm Steve Ducey.
They just actively tried to stop him.
Well, I think that's a fair summary. The same folks that prejudged Hillary Clinton's innocence, prejudged Donald Trump's guilt, and the same names are the same folks whose conduct is at issue with respect to how evidence was presented or not presented to the FISA court.
You've got to explain to me how it is that somebody who gave the green light on the FISA warrant based on all of this unverified information, I'm talking about Rod Rosenstein, the same guy who wrote a letter to have Jim Comey fired and then was upset that the president mentioned that he wrote the letter to get Comey fired, the same guy who is running the DOJ today, who has been sitting on documents that you and your colleagues have been asking for more information about how this all came up. This is the same individual who's overseeing the Robert Mueller investigation?
Well, the reason for that, Maria, is that Attorney General Jeff Sessions has not appointed a special counsel. Think about the extraordinary circumstance.
So this is from 6 years ago, people. Okay, this is when Jeff Sessions, the worst attorney general, he might as well have just picked Merrick Garland at that point. Okay, Trump should have just said, you know what, we're picking Merrick Garland. The heck with it. Jeff Sessions is worse. And I mean, Merrick Garland would have been better, and he was held in contempt of Congress and did everything possible to take down Trump. Jeff Sessions was the worst attorney general. All that nonsense from the message board, almost certainly created by a Democratic operative. Trust LMNOP, and then Democrats said this is a terrible message board. Who do you think? Nobody asked. Well, how did this nonsense start? Probably from a Democratic operative, and unfortunately, there were people who supported Trump that wanted justice. I get it, but you can see the debate with one gentleman who was furthering that nonsense, and I, told the world, do not believe in message boards. Aside from YouTube, which is just basically video on demand, message boards, even X, Truth Social, Instagram, Facebook, any message board, Reddit, it's all basically like entering this world. Remember the movie Tron? Well, you're entering a cyber world. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I don't have X. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Truth Social. I don't have anything aside from this YouTube channel and 2 other small YouTube channels. Okay, but the point is, anyone can manipulate a number of people via, you're probably going to see it Blue Sky. They're probably going to get, oh my God, Trump tried to sell the planet to Martians. This is the latest article in the Times. It's in Blue Sky. I read it. And so this is the alternative to X, which is hilarious. I love these celebrities when they delete their accounts on, what was formerly Twitter, the bastion of complete nonsense and news that was false. They're like, we're leaving. But now you have less influence on the most important platform, social media platform.
That you just described. The head of the FBI, Acting Director Andy McCabe, and the head of the Department of Justice with respect to the Russia investigation, Rod Rosenstein, in direct conflict with one another, each accusing the other of not telling the truth with regard to whether or not someone wanted to record the President of the United States. That's why we have special counsel provisions. The FBI and the Department of Justice cannot be expected to fairly investigate that matter when the heads of both of those components at the Department of Justice are in direct conflict. There should be a special counsel so that we can get answers to these questions.
But there was a lot of strategy.
So you hear John Ratcliffe, who's now one of the most influential, I don't want to use the word powerful, but let's say influential people in American politics as the head of Central Intelligence. What's his name was the other person, I forgot his name, but they're a corporate system, these are system reformers. It's a word that can be utilized to talk about these people. System reform, they're reforming very corrupt systems. Okay, and this is a reformer of a system. This is not the 70-plus-year-old like Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, John Radcliffe, Pam Bondi. They're not the 60 to 70-year-old lifelong diplomat, lifelong politician, lifelong partisan within a political party. They don't need media, and they don't need government. Okay? They don't need... the best politician is one that doesn't need politics or media. Okay? And the best government director or chief, or the best person to lead a government agency is a person who doesn't need media and doesn't need government. I mean a government paycheck and media to help that paycheck.
Strategy going on here. There was a media leak strategy. Let's leak a lot of this unverified stuff to the media so that the media can start talking about it. And they did. There were informants involved. There was a really significant strategy here in trying to take Donald Trump down, it appears to me. Why won't the president declassify all these documents so that the American people can clearly understand what happened here, rather than having this hint of Donald Trump had anything to do with it in the zeitgeist?
Well, that's a good question for the President of the United States. Here's what I can tell you, Maria. All of the documents that Chairman Nunes and others are seeking to declassify, to have the President declassify, I have seen them. And I can tell you as a former federal prosecutor, my opinion is that declassifying them would not expose any national security information, would not expose any sources and methods. It would expose certain folks at the Obama Justice Department and FBI and their actions taken to conceal material facts from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Let me give you an example that may put this in context without revealing anything that's classified. The underlying pretext to the entire Trump Russia investigation, Maria, is this idea that George Papadopoulos, a Trump campaign associate, had a conversation with an Australian diplomat about getting Hillary Clinton's emails from the Russians. Hypothetically, if the Department of Justice and the FBI has another piece of evidence that directly refutes that directly contradicts that, what you would expect is for the Department of Justice to present both sides of the coin to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to evaluate the weight and sufficiency of that evidence. Instead, what happened here was Department of Justice and FBI officials in the Obama administration in October of 2016 only presented to the court the evidence that made the government's case to get a warrant to spy on a Trump campaign associate. Declassification would corroborate what I just related to you.
So what have I been telling you, ladies and gentlemen? This is 6 years ago. They were asking to declassify documents, which would be exculpatory in nature. And Diane, by the way, thank you to my super chat. Thank you, Diane. But you look, ladies and gentlemen, and they've been talking about this for 6+ years. 6 to 7 years they've been talking about this. But now they're going to declassify information that would enable prosecutors to prosecute and convict people. John Durham didn't have that luxury. Okay? They've been withholding information from the American public, a whole lot of information about how they were able to set up and frame Trump and everyone around him. There's a great book called Deep State Target by George Papadopoulos. Go ahead and get it. It's on Amazon. Okay, it's very affordable and it's awesome. I just got it again. I read it years back. In 2019, it came out. I'm going to read it again. George Papadopoulos was an innocent man. And that's actually an amazing story. Like, his wife was standing by her husband. I mean, at that point, you didn't know what was going on, and he could have spent 20 years in prison. I mean, nobody knew what was really going on. And then the more that things unraveled, the more we realized, well, I already knew, if you watch this channel, that all of it was nonsense, but the average person did not probably thought, hey, these individuals might get 20 years. Who knows? And they might have just, we didn't know the sentencing guidelines. I knew that it was nonsense, but you could convict an innocent person and have that person go to prison for a long time. But she was by her man's side. It was amazing, defending him, and, he fought through it. They were both very heroic. And he wrote a book. Definitely buy it. George Papadopoulos' book on Amazon.
Can Robert Mueller do this special investigation without looking at all of this? I mean, how is that investigation having any credibility if he's not actually looking at who did collude or who did work with the Russians?
That issue, I would advocate for the appointment of a special counsel other than Robert Mueller to look at these specific issues.
Yeah, but I want to know where the Mueller investigation is going.
So where it's going, in my informed opinion as a prosecutor, is that it's winding down. I have watched closely what's been happening, and if you look at what the special counsel's office is doing, it's staffing down. Folks that are working for the special counsel team are leaving and going back to the offices from which they were detailed. At the same time, the special counsel is outsourcing and delegating investigative matters back to component agencies or component compartments within the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office. All of that signals a winding down and is consistent with the special counsel indicating that it will accept now written answers from Donald Trump's lawyers about all matters collusion related to obstruction of justice related.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, Maria, where we are headed here is no charges for collusion or obstruction with anyone associated with the Trump campaign, but a report from Bob Mueller outlining perhaps some questionable conduct, and we'll be left arguing with our Democratic colleagues whether that rises to an impeachable offense, even if it's not criminal in nature.
So not only was he investigated based on nonsense, they found not a shred of evidence from the Mueller probe. Then the rebuttal from these complete buffoons. Oh, well, did you know that there was opposition research? What does that have to do with Trump? And how did that help Trump in any way, shape, or form? How is that even collusion between his entire campaign, Trump? What does that even mean? They got research from the Ruskies. Well, and so that Clinton lost all of those swing states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, because of that. How many people altered their vote in 2016 because of Facebook ads or Twitter bots or opposition research? I mean, they're like artificial intelligence robots.
Well, it's pretty incredible to me, though, that they are moving forward with it based on what you're calling hearsay. I mean, do you have anybody that you've heard from who actually was on the call? I mean, the president released the transcript, and we know what the transcript said. How is this taking such life?
It's taking life because of people like Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, and Nadler. That's why it's taking life. And they have been intent before our president was even sworn into office, 2 days after he was elected, to impeach him. They have been talking about finding a way to impeach him, and they don't have anything, and they're not going to give up on this, but we're going to fight back, and we know the president did nothing wrong. Two people were on that call, President Trump and President Zelensky. And what did they both say? There was no quid pro quo.
Right.
The president did nothing wrong. Ukraine didn't even know aid was being withheld, and aid was withheld except up.
Any of these hearings this week, is it better to just ignore it or just have a representative in that room?
No, we have great members of the House Judiciary who are going to be there. This is a sham process from day one.
Yeah.
And why would we participate in it? Also, the president's in NATO. Maria, you've been talking about all the great things that he's doing in NATO. And to do this when a president is in foreign land, meeting with world leaders, doing some of the most important work he can do for our country, they are holding impeachment hearings. It's outrageous. It should outrage every American. Also that, as you've talked about in the past, USMCA, it's sitting on Nancy Pelosi's desk,
right,
collecting dust. It could bring 176,000 jobs and billions of dollars to our country. USMCA. We could go on.
Yeah.
NDAA.
It seems
everything.
Definitely they're leaving a lot on the table, and I think that's what happened when they went home for Thanksgiving. That they faced the wrath of.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you tomorrow. This is H.R. 489, censoring and condemning the new California senator when he was representative. It's sponsored by Anna Paulina Luna, amazing representative, from Florida. And it will just be it'll serve as the basis, along with a whole bunch of other things, to indict Democratic officials, people in Congress, anyone, current and former government officials who were intent on trying to set up and frame Trump. You can't lie. The Democrats, they lie so much. All they did was lie. That's why they lost in a landslide. That's why they lost the popular vote, every battleground state, the presidency, the Senate, the House, even though, the same, whatever, we'll talk, we don't have to get into that. They still lost the House, or they still did not retake the House. They lost the Senate, the popular vote, every battleground state, and the presidency, and they don't have the Supreme Court. So what have they had virtually every advantage politically just 4 years ago, and they have wasted everything because that political party doesn't really, the only thing that they truly believe in is the attainment of political power. They claim to have all these values and they claim to be morally superior. Nothing could be further from the truth. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. Any political party that has people who will disown friends and family is not a political party that is functioning. Is not a functioning political party. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to your